The pallet comes in on the 0400 manifest, logged as industrial salvage, compressed ore processing components, destination, decommission. I run the scanner the way I run every scanner on every crate that comes through Kestrel intake. Half awake, doing it right anyway. The reading stops me cold. Biological mass. Mammalian adjacent. 74 centimeters. Cardiac rhythm slow but present. Respiratory rate suppressed. Chemical sedation, probably field grade, the kind that costs nothing and leaves a residue that takes a week to clear. I set the scanner down. I look at the crate. It is sealed with 2 padlocks and a commercial freight bond. It is labeled component array, NON reactive, DRY storage. I get the bolt cutters. Inside, packed in recycled foam sheeting that was probably used for actual components before this, is a child. Slate grey skin with veins of faint silver running up from the throat, branching like frost on a window. A bioluminescent eye film, the kind the Drevathai have in place of eyelids, closed now, flickering faintly at the edges, which means the sedation is light and wearing off. Small fingers. A cloth worn thin at the edges, something someone put around her shoulders before they sealed the crate, which means someone cared enough to do that and not enough to do anything else. She is perhaps 4 or 5 years old. She weighs nothing. I have been doing triage intake on Kestrel Station for 11 years. I know what I am looking at. I know what the freight bond says. It has a recovery directive number on it, which means someone with institutional authority filed a reclamation claim on this child the way you file a claim on a load of scrap copper. I know that if I log this through the standard salvage channel, a notification pings an office somewhere and that office sends people. I also know Compact Medical Statute 9.14, Section 3, because I wrote a complaint about it once to my sector administrator and she told me it was ironclad, which made me memorize it. Active triage hold. Any biological entity receiving medical attention under the care of a licensed compact medical officer may not be removed, transferred, or otherwise relocated by any party, governmental, commercial, or private, without the express written consent of the attending officer and a secondary review by a compact medical board adjudicator. Interference constitutes unlawful obstruction of medical jurisdiction, a Class 2 compact violation, carrying a minimum 7-year sanctions package for the interfering body. I get my data pad. I open a new patient file. I enter *Drevathai juvenile, female, estimated age 4 to 6 years, presenting sedation toxicity and hypothermia secondary to extended containment in unregulated storage environment. I classify her condition as acute. I list myself as attending officer. I timestamp it 0411 hours, which is when I found her, which is true. Then I carry her to the med bay and I get to work. She wakes up 6 hours later. I have been sitting in the chair beside the cot since 0430, except for 2 trips to the galley and 1 trip to the communications console to respond to the first inquiry from the Recovery Directive Office. The inquiry was politely worded. It asked about the status of freight bond VR7741 Drev, component array, and requested confirmation of delivery to standard salvage processing. I responded that the item logged under that bond number had been reclassified upon intake inspection and was currently under active medical care. I attached the patient file. I noted that under Compact Medical Statute 9.14, Section 3, any further disposition of the patient would require my written consent and adjudicator review. I wished them a productive shift. The child stares at me when she opens her eyes. The eye film retracts in layers. That's how Drevathai waking looks, like a sunrise in reverse, and underneath it her irises are the color of deep water, almost black, with the faintest luminescence at the edge. She doesn't make a sound. She takes in the ceiling, the cot, the equipment, and then me, and she stays very still the way small animals stay still when they aren't sure yet what the large thing nearby is going to do. You're safe, I tell her. Nobody's moving you. I'm a doctor. She doesn't understand the words. The Drevathai who come through Kestrel are usually cargo brokers, engineers, people with translation rigs. She has no translation rig. She is a child who was packed in a crate. I put my hand on the cot rail, not on her, and I leave it there. I don't reach toward her. I let her look at me. After a while she sits up, slowly, and she wraps the thermal blanket around herself without taking her eyes off me. It's something, the smallest move toward comfort rather than stillness. I take that. I bring her broth from the galley. Compact stations keep Drevathai dietary provisions for the transit population. I have 3 tins. I warm one, put it in a cup with a wide base so it doesn't tip, and I set it on the edge of the cot within her reach. Then I sit back down in the chair. She watches the cup for a long time. She watches me. She picks up the cup with both hands and she drinks. The second communication from the recovery directive comes at 1700, and the tone has changed. This one is from a unit commander, not an administrative office. He identifies himself as Field Officer Thresh of the Vethra Imperial Recovery Directive, and he tells me that Freight Bond VR 7741 Drev covers a legally acquired Drevathai juvenile under the Vethra Reclamation Act of 2219, that this juvenile is property of a registered Vethra household, and that I am to prepare her for transfer to Recovery Unit 7, which will dock at Kestrel Station at 0800 tomorrow. He tells me that failure to comply will be considered obstruction of an Imperial Reclamation Order. I read his message twice. I note that the Vethra Reclamation Act of 2219 has no standing within compact chartered space, which Kestrel Station is, having been chartered in 2187. I note that an Imperial Reclamation Order is not a compact legal instrument and carries no enforcement weight in this jurisdiction. I note that the child in my med bay is a patient under active triage hold and that none of that has changed. I write back. I tell Field Officer Thresh that I have received his communication. I explain that Kestrel Station operates under Compact Medical Charter 7, which supersedes bilateral trade agreements with non-compact signatories in matters of medical jurisdiction. I attach Compact Medical Statute 9.14 in full. I attach the patient file. I note that should Recovery Unit 7 dock at Kestrel at 0800, I will be happy to receive their personnel in the intake bay, where I can walk them through the relevant statutes in whatever detail they require. I hit send. Then I go back to the med bay. The child has figured out the adjustable cot controls and has raised the back section so she can sit up properly. She has also discovered the diagnostic tablet I left on the side table and is turning it over in her hands, examining the casing. She looks up when I come in. She doesn't go still this time. I sit down. I hand her a second cup of broth because she finished the first one. She takes it without looking away from the tablet. I don't know your name, I tell her. I know she doesn't understand me. I say it anyway because she should hear a voice that isn't treating her like freight. She says something in Drevathai. It's soft, 3 syllables, and she says it while holding the tablet up slightly, as if she's introducing the two of us, or asking a question, or both. Veth, I tell her, because that's what I know of her language, just the standard greeting, the Drevathai word that means approximately asterisk I see you asterisk and approximately asterisk I am here asterisk and approximately nothing translates perfectly. But she blinks all 3 layers of her eye film when I say it, which I know from transit charts is a Drevathai signal of recognition, and she says her 3 syllables again, and I try to say them back. We spend the evening like that. Not communication, exactly. The beginning of it. Recovery Unit 7 docks at 0812. I am in the intake bay when the airlock cycles. There are 4 of them, Vethra military, heavier gear than the situation requires, which is a standard intimidation calibration. Field Officer Thresh is the one in front. He is taller than I am by a significant margin, and he carries himself like someone accustomed to having that matter. I have my data pad. I have the patient file open on it, timestamped from yesterday. I have Compact Medical Statute 9.14 queued on the secondary screen. Dr. Reyes, Thresh says. Field Officer, I say. I appreciate the punctuality. He looks past me, toward the med bay corridor. I'll need the juvenile transferred to our custody within the hour. We have a return schedule. I understand you have a schedule, I say. I want to make sure you have the relevant context before we go any further. I turn the datapad toward him and walk him through it. Not fast. Not slow. The way I would walk a second-year resident through a case. Every section, every clause, every implication. Compact charter. Medical jurisdiction. Active triage hold. Class 2 violation. 7-year sanctions minimum for the interfering body, not the interfering individual, the body, which in this case would be the Vethra Imperial Recovery Directive as an institution. Thresh listens. He's done this before, talked to a compact official who cited code to him, but I can see the moment he finds the edge of what he prepared for. The Reclamation Act of 2219 is the instrument his office runs on. He does not have a counter-instrument. What he has is 4 soldiers in heavier gear than the situation requires, and that is not a compact legal instrument either. The child is listed as property under a valid reclamation filing, he says. Your medical hold doesn't supersede a property claim. In compact chartered space, I say, no biological entity can be classified as property. That's Charter Article 1, Section 1. The reclamation filing is not a valid legal instrument within this station's jurisdiction. The child is a patient. The hold stands. He looks at me for a long time. The two soldiers behind him shift their weight. I do not shift mine. This isn't over, Thresh says. You're welcome to file a compact legal challenge, I say. I can give you the adjudicator's contact. Average review timeline is 4 to 6 months. Patient triage hold remains in effect throughout the review period. I pause. I'd also note that the sedation residue in her system is consistent with a field-grade compound that's controlled under the compact trafficking protocols. That's a separate matter, but it will come up if a review is filed. He stares at me. Then he looks at the datapad one more time, as if something on it might have changed. It hasn't. They leave at 0849. I go back to the med bay. She is sitting on the cot with the diagnostic tablet in her lap, and when I come in she looks up and says her 3 syllables and then, carefully, with the weight of someone who has been practicing, she says, Veth. I see you. I am here. I sit down in the chair. Yeah, I say. Veth. Outside the viewport, the mining world turns slowly, stripped and grey and patient. Somewhere in the system, a recovery directive shuttle is calculating a route home with nothing in it. I pick up the secondary datapad and I start the paperwork for an emergency wardship application to the Compact Child Advocacy Bureau. It's a long form. It's going to take most of the morning. I don't mind. I have been doing this job for 11 years. I know which forms to file, and I know what they mean. And when someone puts a child in my intake bay, in a crate, in foam sheeting, with a thin cloth around her shoulders because someone cared enough to do that, I know what my job is. I fill out the form. She leans over eventually and looks at what I'm doing, curious, the eye film half retracted, her small fingers almost touching the screen. She says something in Drevathai. 3 new syllables this time. I don't know what they mean. I keep filing.